Hey guys, welcome back to the Joe Silverback Show. I think where we left off, I was telling you guys about my beginnings and my introduction with the wise man, the Silverback, my teacher and guru for 10 years, Martin. And the two things I started out with was the question of what's my purpose, finding my purpose as a man. That was the key cornerstone of Martin's teaching me how to become the Silverback. The Silverback is certainty, not doubt. Silverback is know thyself, know who you are, what you want, where you're going, what your purpose is. That was Martin's first question to me. What's your plans for the next 50 years of your life? What's your purpose? Where are you going? So I argued and I fought and I argued and I fought and I argued and I fought like a young guy does, like, you know, king of the mountain, and haha, you think you're the king, I'm gonna knock you down. But he was right, and ultimately I found my purpose, identified it. Second thing, find your woman. Find your woman. Okay? So, with every good man is a great woman. With every great man is a good woman. I had a woman. Martin knew she was a good woman. He didn't know if she was the right woman for me. Told me, you gotta make up your mind. I made up my mind. I made my decision. It wasn't without doubts and uncertainty, but I decided this is the right one for me. I did it intuitively, instinctively. I went inside here and I said, yes, this is the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. And I put her to the test and she put me to the test. And in over 10 years, the great fortune that we had, and why I want to talk about the importance of young men having older males mentoring them and helping them, is because life is tough, life is hard, and life is messy. And an older, wiser male is very, very vital for a young man to help him with decision making and staying out of the muck. So I was fortunate to have that with Martin for 10 years. Every day of my life, or 2 days of my life a week, or 3 days a week, I could stop and see him at the seashore and ask him all the questions and tell him all my confusion and all my troubles and all of this. And I did. That is the mark of wisdom, which is knowing that you don't know something, knowing that you need understanding that you've got to find someone who has that understanding, and then lastly, having the balls, having the courage, having the strength, having the determination to actually follow the advice. That's critical. That would be number 3. I would say that there's a lot of people around us all the time who can provide that for us. Most of us got to ask ourselves, how much are we really willing to sacrifice or compromise what our appetites and our desires in order to follow a disciplined life, in order to achieve something higher than just rolling the dice. And I was willing to do that, and Martin was dedicated to serving the needs of the young bucks like me who were willing to. And number three, another item that's really critical in my story with Martin, because when I was with him, I was first and foremost with somebody who I thought was at the level of a Jesus or a Buddha or a Lao Tzu, and I still believe that with all my heart. I believe that Martin was just born to help people. And his kindness, his generosity, his character, his nature, all formed what I would call a humble personality. Even though when I talked to him many times, like as I would say to him all the time, how can you be so certain? How can you be so sure? he would tell me all the time, well, I'm more arrogant than you are. He was saying he was more arrogant than Joe, myself, was. And that intrigued me. That meant that as a wise man, as a silverback, as an experienced adult who was passing on wisdom, he had to have a feeling of certainty and confidence about what he was saying. And for him, that's what he meant by arrogance. For me, he was the most humble, arrogant person I've ever met. If that combination can make you laugh, it should. If it doesn't, go see a humor therapist. It's pretty funny to me. It's the yin and yang. It's the in and out. It's the yielding and pushing forward. Humility is vital. Humility before something greater than you. Pushing forward and asserting yourself and knowing something for somebody who knows less than you. In and out, balance of nature, yin and yang, the wise man. Okay, so what's next? I made a decision about who I was, what my purpose was. I made a decision that this was the right woman for me. And a lot of the rest of what followed that was experimentation and making lots of mistakes, but being willing to practice. So coming into being and feeling and thinking about and bringing into my consciousness the concept of being the silverback, well, it was empowering in a lot of ways, and it was also ego gratifying to, put my fist down and say, well, hey, the buck stops here. Now, what Martin did that was so vital was not just say, you're a man, you're in control, you're the leader, you can do whatever you want. Hardly. What he did was hammered and chiseled at me and said, if you want this strong woman to serve your needs, you need to serve her needs, and you need to serve her needs so well that there's nothing else that she will want to do other than show gratitude by taking care of you for the rest of your life. So that was part of the decade of shaping with Martin that I went through, and I can give you some examples. I can give you some examples of things that Martin would do. I would be sitting at the seashore, absorbed in my haiku writing, my one-liners, and Martin would be coming along the seashore, and when he walked with these long strides. Skinny little man, skinny little legs, always with this heavy jacket on, with wool sweater underneath it, with a wool vest underneath that, because he was skinny and he was at the beach, and there was the beach, the coastal climate can be damp and wet and penetrating. But what I learned by watching him was, number one, when he walked with intention, he walked with purpose. That came ingrained into me over time. Secondly, he would walk up to me, and first of all, he would show his humility. Am I disturbing you? No, you're not. Okay, good. I would have wanted to share something with you. And he would stick his finger in my face and say, you've got to get enough rest. You've got to make sure that you get enough rest. If you don't get enough rest, you're not going to be able to take care of Corinne well enough, and you're not going to be able to help her take care of your children. You've got to get enough rest. Work was vital. Work hard was important. Strive, be determined, but also rest and make sure you're well rested. Secondly, you've got to make sure Corinne gets enough rest. If you really love Corinne, and if you really love the child that she'll bring you, and if you really love how she'll care for that child, you've got to make sure that she's getting enough rest. This is some of the daily, weekly education that was coming from my mentor to me. Corinne, Corinne would go to Martin when she wanted. Maybe for every 10 times I would sit with Martin, she would go there. And he adored her, he admired her. He saw that she was a good woman, that her character was strong, her nature was strong, that she loved me. And what I learned from him was deep admiration for a woman. And one of the things that Martin shared with me, and I'll share with you in just a second, is something that was really puzzling to me, because again, I told you, when in my 10 years of being with this man, I really believed that I was with a holy man, a wise man, someone at the level of Jesus, Buddha, Lao Tzu, and Dalai Lama. And imagine the reverence that I held for him. I held deep reverence for him. This man was giving to a young man like me his energy and his time, and how could I give back, and how could I show respect, and how could I revere him in the way that I felt this great love and respect and admiration. And one of the things that he told me that stunned me, he was married for 40 years. His wife died 5 years before I met him. He told me, my wife taught me love. Of course, I thought he's just being humble. What's he talking about? He is the embodiment of love. He is the embodiment of humility. He is the wise one. He is so godlike in so many ways. He's so saintly in so many ways. How could his wife have taught him love? I mean, he's just giving a little bit of excessive recognition. And Martin also told me something else that I think is really, really critical for everybody to hear, and it's what I try to share, but it's really important when I remember back how the Silverback passed that on to me. He said, man is superior to woman in his ability to be a leader. He's born to be a leader. And through his fulfilling his leadership nature, he is superior to a woman. He also told me a woman is superior to a man in her ability to give birth. By following her nature, her birthing nature, and becoming the mother, a woman finds a power that a man will be envious of if he's intelligent, sensitive, and has his consciousness open. What does that mean? That means that the nature inside of a woman that gives all of this energy to a child that grows inside of her for 9 months transforms into a mother. And motherhood is a selflessness that is not part of manliness. And in that regard, when we see that girls are leagues ahead of boys in terms of emotional maturity, in terms of social consciousness, they're always looking and thinking about the other. Males are thinking about themselves. How can I conquer? How can I eat what's for me? How can I take what's for mine? Females are thinking, how can I share? Would you like some? Come share this experience. This is the different kind of energies that man and women, male and female, have. And so going back to Martin's reverence for his wife, fast forward 17 years after Corinne and I met, when Corinne passed away, when my wife passed away, I followed Martin's advice because I was devastated, and he told me when a man is truly thankful, he cannot be sad, angry, or depressed. So I went down to the seashore and I started to write a thank you letter to my wife who had passed away. And I thanked her for the sweater she made me. I thanked her for the food that she gave to me. I thanked her for the children she brought. I thanked her for what she did for these children. And I went into detail over everything this woman had done for me. 15 pages later, I was brimming and overflowing with an awareness that this one person dedicated their life for me, for our children, in a selfless, unceasing, loving way that I never could, that I was not born to do, that I don't have the nature of her to even command that kind of interest in taking care of kids in the same way. Doesn't mean that I'm not loving. Doesn't mean that I can't give my kids a lot. I took care of my kids after she passed. They were 3, 8, 11, and 13. So for the last 16 years, I raised these children without her. But I understood what Martin said. I learned love from watching the woman I love give birth to our child, give her body and her first of all, give her body and her blood to this child for 9 months, give her breast to this child for 2 years, go to the markets and find the finest quality of food, take time to prepare this food. The loving kindness of a woman toward her child and the desire of a woman to serve her man is something that a man could spend the rest of his life learning from. We all have our strengths. Namaste. Stay tuned for part 3 and 4 of the Joe Silverback story.